portfolio management. A lot of companies have projects and they're trying to decide what do they fund. And a lot of times they don't consider quality at all when they talk about their decision-making policies. So I want to talk about 5 potential ills that you've probably seen before, and what are some of the things I've seen work with those and trying to manage those ills. The first ones are WTFs coming from the team. And we've probably seen that in Clean Code. There was a great book, Clean Code, by Robert C. Martin. And he talks about the best way to figure out how good the code is how many WTFs are coming on the team. You start to say things like, well, I've never seen such bad code before. Have you ever went to code before and said, or even tests or anything, and said, wow, those are the most beautiful tests I've ever seen, and they weren't yours? Right? So some of the things that we can do to try to help ourselves out is to make collaboration more of a part of our team dynamic. One way we can do that is actually make things visible. Metrics. Lots of great metrics out there to help us with code and understanding how well developed the code is. PMD, check style, end cover, all these great tools, but make them visible up in your team rooms. Very simple idea. Also, make them available to the strategic planners in your company so that they understand what the current quality is, or at least some kind of indicator of quality. I don't think it really is a true number, but at least an indicator of quality on that portfolio and those programs that they have. The next one is, when will we be done? You've probably never been asked that before, right? The bugs are piling up. We're not quite sure if we're going to stabilize the product in time. Are we going to hit our release date? Do we need 15 more people just to make this thing happen? Do we need a whole bunch more testers, but we don't have any budget for testers? That's something that happens quite often. We have this problem in our industry where we have bug databases, and I call that cataloging inadequacies. We actually catalog our inadequacies constantly, and then we don't fix them. We put them into this bug database, and they sit there as severity 3 and below, because we don't have to fix those before we go to release. Or we have the triage discussion right before release where we say, is that really a Sev 1 bug or is it a Sev 3? Because we can go out with a Sev 3.
Maybe it's just a feature.
That might be a feature just waiting to happen. So one thing that you can give to the portfolio managers, strategic planners, is actually defect containment. Defect containment on your iterations for the features you've developed, any kind of regression errors that are coming up, and also defect containment for your releases. How many bugs are escaping into production? Let's make that very visible to our strategic planners so they can use that information about understanding the volatility of a product or an application in their portfolio. The other one is it takes a village to deploy this thing. Have you ever seen that before? We must write a memoir to deploy into this environment. Okay? I've had to do that before, of course. We can't test until it works. These are kind of the things you start to hear as indicators that you're in this, deploying this thing's hard. Now, the problem is that these all add risk to the actual release. They add risk to anything that we're trying to develop. And also, what we're trying to develop next on top of that platform. So what we need to be able to do is validate our software quickly, of course, automated testing as much as possible on those things that we can do repeatably and specifically. And then also make it visible on your continuous integration environment. And do automated promotions. Once it's successful through unit tests, automate the promotion to some acceptance testing framework or whatever it might be, Selenium, Sauce Labs, and then move it up the chain up to your load and stress testing. Have those automated so that you can actually see the progression of your product, and maybe even the components integrating together across a portfolio or program of potential architectural components. And then the next one, why didn't they write better requirements? I'm sure you've never said that before. Why didn't they tell us sooner that they wanted that? We all expect our customers to be perfect. This kind of goes back to what Jeremy was talking about earlier. Jeremy says, you know, we look for this system where we're 100% good citizens. That doesn't happen. Be fault tolerant. So feedback is essential to meet customer needs. That means we need to get their feedback as early as possible. Try to build something as very small, get it to them, get their feedback. Because customers don't always know what they want, but they really know what they don't want. And we want to design for changeability. So when I talk about design and software architecture with many people, I don't talk about how do you make something live a long time. I talk about how can we make it so changeable that it'll meet the new demands. How can we change it with time? Of course, modularity and all those things that we were just discussing in the last talk, I think those are very helpful. But also, keeping a CI dashboard and actually telling how much technical debt. There are great tools out there that will show you how much technical debt is in your code. At least an indicator. Yeah, Sonar. Sonarsource.org. I highly recommend it. One of the best tools. It even has a COBOL plugin. If you have any COBOL, love it. But it'll actually show based upon design, based upon code coverage, based upon lots of different aspects. It'll give you numbers about how much technical debt you have and about how much time it'll take to pay it back, and also about how much money. And you can configure all those parameters. And then who's on first? That's my last ill. One of the big issues is scaling. And when we scale, sometimes we scale out based upon componentry, components of our architecture. And that becomes a really daunting task of integration and even figuring out if all the requirements are done. Have we actually completed the requirements? So one of the things that we look for is how do we find those missing requirements? Well, that means people actually have to come together and talk and collaborate. That'd be a nice way to get some of that information out on the wall. I try to put our product backlogs up on the wall. Just let out the whole team, and all the teams have the product backlog up on their wall so they can identify issues. Also, we might actually reconfigure the organization. One of the ways to help with driving better quality throughout all of your components is to start working in vertical slices, having feature teams. Now, of course, many of us might not be able to jump to that the next day. We might even have the control in our organization to make that happen. But figuring out ways to get people that have cross-discipline capabilities to come on the same team and deliver slices through the entire architecture. How can we get there? Well, Nokia Siemens Networks did that. They had people working on products, 400 people on one product, telco products. And they would actually have all those people, any team within those 400 people, could take any next product backlog item. It's an amazing approach. And they were able to do it well and deliver to market fast. But one way that we can start to have indicators for strategic planners is to have a release burn-up, or even better yet, at Edge 2010, a guy named Dave Thomas talked about a risk window. We in the Agile world start telling everybody our burn-up chart actually means reality, when actually that's our optimistic viewpoint. What we're saying is if we can hit that goal and we're at the current velocity, we might make it. But it actually is wrong. We need a risk profile on that. We need to understand what do we not know, and we need to put that into that risk profile as quick as possible when we do identify it. So having a release forecast chart, and of course our tool has that, but having some kind of idea of that there is an actual forecast, not just a date. And you know what? We also have to start talking in dollars and dates. The business only understands that. If we want to actually do these projects where we start to think about design, where we start to think about better technology and the better ways to use it, we have to start talking in the way of the business. So how can we do that easily? Well, we can translate our points and all those other things that we might use for estimation into dollars and dates. Okay. I think that can help us manage our software debt better. There's my talk.